Attitudes toward immigration in the United States rest substantially on emotional, moral, and spiritual motivations that influence views on both legal entry and pathways to legal status for individuals already present. These motivations emphasize compassion for those fleeing hardship and seeking better lives for their families alongside generosity in sharing opportunity with the less fortunate. A welcoming spirit rooted in the nation's self-image as a destination for newcomers further sustains positive orientations. Such feelings often intersect with beliefs that immigration yields economic growth through skilled expertise filling labor shortages and immigrants accepting roles that others avoid. The result is a coherent set of humanitarian and practical sentiments that shape broad public favorability. Religious perspectives, especially among Christians, deepen these motivations by grounding them in scriptural commands to welcome the stranger and uphold the God-given dignity of every person. Love for neighbor, mercy toward the vulnerable, and the duty of hospitality reinforce compassion while protecting family unity and balancing respect for the rule of law with justice. Personal interactions within church communities and the opportunity to advance the Great Commission through evangelism add lived spiritual dimensions. Fairness to taxpayers paired with redemption for integrated contributors and the view of immigrants as a providential blessing complete a distinct yet overlapping set of faith-informed reasons. Extended motivations supplement the core sentiments with dispositional empathy through perspective-taking, gratitude and admiration for resilience, an instinctive sense of fundamental fairness, and openness to the world as an element of personal and national identity. Spiritual kinship that sees immigrants as brothers and sisters in Christ, rejection of national idolatry in favor of a transnational kingdom identity, moral consistency in embodying gospel mercy, joy derived from hospitality, moral discomfort in the face of suffering, and hope for a more compassionate human story round out the full spectrum. Critical perspectives on societal impacts and the contested nature of supporting data together with layered analytical approaches provide structured responses that address these feeling-based reasons comprehensively. General population feeling-based motivations for immigration support. The general population articulates compassion and empathy for people fleeing hardship as a foundational reason for supporting immigration. This sentiment focuses on the human desire to aid families seeking improved circumstances and safety. Generosity manifests as the impulse to extend opportunity to those less fortunate, framing immigration as an act of sharing national resources. A welcoming spirit emerges as a core American value tied to historic identity and symbols of openness. These emotional drivers establish the primary humanitarian orientation that characterizes much of the public discourse. Perceptions of economic contribution reinforce the emotional base. Immigrants appear to drive growth by supplying skilled expertise that addresses labor shortages and by filling essential roles that domestic workers often decline. The belief that such participation enriches culture and values adds another layer of positive feeling. Fairness toward long-term contributors already integrated into communities sustains support for pathways that recognize established presence. Innovation, entrepreneurship, and the overall strengthening of society through hard work and talents complete the set of 10 interconnected motivations that blend empathy with tangible societal benefit. These motivations operate in tandem across legal and pathway contexts. They reflect a consistent pattern in which emotional responses to individual stories and collective benefit converge. The resulting framework explains sustained favorability even when policy details vary. Public sentiment thus rests on a stable core of feeling-based reasons that prioritize humanitarian concern while incorporating practical uplift. Christian and religious feeling-based motivations for immigration support. Christian perspectives anchor support in the biblical mandate to welcome the stranger and the imperative to respect the God-given dignity of every person. Mercy and care for the vulnerable flow from the command to love one's neighbor. Hospitality functions as a lived duty that extends compassion to those in need. Protection of family unity aligns with scriptural emphasis on the household. These elements form the initial cluster of faith-driven reasons that orient believers toward openness. The balance between respect for the rule of law and the exercise of justice and mercy receives explicit attention. Personal interactions and church ministry experiences provide concrete reinforcement. The opportunity to fulfill the Great Commission through evangelism among newcomers supplies missional motivation. Fairness to taxpayers combined with pathways for redemption reflects a commitment to orderly processes. Immigrants appear as a blessing consistent with God's providence, completing the 10 religious motivations that integrate spiritual conviction with practical ethics. These reasons maintain internal coherence by rooting emotional responses in scriptural teaching. They allow believers to hold both compassion and order without contradiction. The framework therefore sustains support for legal immigration and measured pathways within a distinctly Christian moral universe. Religious sentiment thereby contributes a stable and theologically grounded dimension to the broader landscape of feeling-based motivations. Extended additional feeling-based motivations and their comprehensive coverage. Extended motivations enlarge the emotional repertoire with dispositional empathy and active perspective-taking that invites individuals to imagine themselves in the position of newcomers. Gratitude and admiration arise from observing resilience and moral exemplars. An instinctive sense of fundamental fairness and humane treatment adds moral weight. Openness to the world functions as an element of personal and national identity. These 4 general extensions deepen the humanitarian foundation. Spiritual kinship that regards immigrants as brothers and sisters in Christ, rejection of national idolatry in favor of transnational kingdom identity, and moral consistency in embodying gospel mercy over strict reciprocity provide distinctly religious extensions. Joy and personal fulfillment from acts of hospitality, moral discomfort or quiet guilt when confronted with suffering, and hope and wonder at the possibility of a more compassionate human story complete the 10 additional motivations. Together these elements fill gaps left by the core lists and create fuller coverage of the feeling-based terrain. The extended reasons integrate seamlessly with the general and Christian lists. They ensure that nearly all documented emotional, moral, and spiritual drivers receive attention. The resulting totality offers a comprehensive map of the internal experiences that sustain support for immigration. This completeness allows for systematic analysis of the full spectrum of feeling-based motivations in American discourse. Critical perspectives on immigration's societal effects and the political character of immigration statistics. Critical perspectives highlight demographic transformation and loss of national identity as consequences of sustained immigration. Crime and public safety concerns arise from claims of disproportionate involvement in violence, gangs, drugs, and terrorism. Economic displacement, wage suppression, and job theft receive attention alongside housing crisis and overcrowding strain. Welfare dependency and fiscal ruin appear as burdens on taxpayers. These arguments form the initial cluster of societal impact concerns. Political takeover, voting manipulation, and chain migration escalation, cultural erosion and decline in societal standards, breakdown of community cohesion and rise of tribal enclaves, weaponized grievances and power conflicts, and overall societal lowering and quality of life collapse complete the set of 10 critical arguments. Each focuses on observable strains rather than abstract principle. The perspectives therefore emphasize concrete effects on the receiving society. Immigration statistics themselves exhibit political character. Crime data reveal undercounting traceable to identification lags and sanctuary non-cooperation. Fiscal and welfare measurements vary according to household versus individual accounting, time horizons, and eligibility rules. Polling results shift with question wording, sampling frames, and presentation choices. Methodological decisions in definitions and data compilation introduce systematic variability. The contested nature of statistics therefore forms an integral part of the critical perspective on immigration's effects. Layered analytical approaches to feeling-based motivations and their interplay in constructing comprehensive arguments. Layered analytical approaches address feeling-based motivations through 3 distinct yet complementary modalities. Logical examination focuses on methodological variability and undercounting in supporting data. Expanded emotional responses redirect sentiments such as compassion and fairness towards citizens and future generations. National responsibility and heritage preservation supply an ethical framework centered on stewardship, ordered priorities, and cultural continuity. These layers differ in emphasis yet share the common purpose of engaging motivations on their own terms. The layers operate effectively in isolation or combination. Logical analysis suits settings that prize evidence and methodological rigor. Expanded emotional responses connect in personal or communal contexts by validating protective instincts. National responsibility and heritage preservation function in value-based discussions by articulating long-term ethical obligations. Cross-referencing strengthens impact. A logical point on data limitations can support an emotional appeal to community safety, which in turn receives elevation through the stewardship lens. Independent use allows flexibility, while joint deployment produces a unified analytical structure. The interplay yields a complete framework for engaging the feeling-based reasons. Logical, emotional, and national responsibility components together demonstrate that compassion, generosity, and mercy remain valid but require ordered application beginning with one's own community. The resulting synthesis furnishes a coherent intellectual resource for understanding and responding to the emotional, moral, and spiritual dimensions of immigration attitudes. This framework stands as a self-contained contribution to the scholarly examination of the topic. Conclusion: American attitudes toward immigration. Compassion meets critical analysis. The emotional, moral, and spiritual motivations that support immigration receive systematic articulation in general, Christian, and extended forms. These motivations encompass compassion, generosity, welcoming spirit, and a range of supplementary sentiments that together account for the internal experiences driving public and religious favorability. Critical perspectives on societal effects and the political character of statistics provide necessary context for evaluating those motivations. The layered analytical approaches of logical examination, expanded emotional response, and national responsibility and heritage preservation complete the picture. Integration of the supportive motivations with the critical perspectives and layered approaches produces a balanced scholarly portrait. Each element receives full consideration without subordination or omission. The framework therefore captures the full complexity of the discourse while maintaining analytical clarity. Future inquiry can build directly on this structure to explore additional nuances in American attitudes toward immigration. The overall result is a unified scholarly account that illuminates the interplay of feeling and critical reflection. By presenting the motivations and responses in coherent narrative form, the analysis advances understanding of how emotional, moral, and spiritual factors shape policy orientations. This contribution stands as an independent examination grounded in the documented dimensions of the immigration debate.